Remember Fionna and Cake from the iconic Adventure Time series? Well, you'll be amazed to discover that Fionna and Cake may not just be characters from a book, but actual inhabitants of a separate, real reality. Now, you might be wondering if there's any connection between these two seemingly distinct worlds. Well, then answers you seek are just around the corner, so join us as we dive into the world of Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake, leaving no detail unexplored. The adventures of Fionna and Cake start by heroically saving citizens from a dangerous rat bus, which catches the attention of Ice Prince, who invites them on magical adventures. However, Fionna's exciting dream is abruptly interrupted by her alarm clock, signaling the start of another mundane day. So relax, it was just a dream. Ugh, classic. She mentions her recurring dreams about the Ice King to Cake, who begins acting strangely, seeing visions of blue sparkles. Fionna, reluctantly preparing for work as a tour guide, continues to discuss her dreams. Her job lacks excitement, and she mentions the dream to her tour group, sparking curiosity about its meaning. As Cake's erratic behavior escalates, their journey takes a twist when Fionna's boss, Queenie, fires her for a lackluster tour performance. Surprisingly, Fionna doesn't protest, revealing that she never wanted the job. Later, Fionna's frustration with the monotony of her life becomes apparent as she interacts with uninteresting people and even shoves past them. She rejects an opportunity to join a roller derby team, highlighting her growing discontent with her everyday routine. She visits a bakery where Gary Prince works. Their conversation reveals Fionna's recent firing, her concern for Cake's unusual behavior, and her financial worries about the vet visit. Fionna's quest to find answers about Cake's behavior eventually leads her to LSP, who may have a solution in exchange for Gary's cookies. She wonders if Cake is sick, feels trapped, or simply craves more magic in her life. The episode ends with Cake jumping into an ice cream stand freezer, leaving viewers intrigued by the mysterious ice sparkles that have been recurring in the story. In this episode, the themes of monotony, longing for adventure, and the power of friendship take center stage. Fionna's dreams of thrilling escapades contrast sharply with her tedious job as a tour guide, highlighting her yearning for change and excitement. Her genuine concern for her friend Cake, who exhibits peculiar behavior and visions of blue sparkles, showcases the depth of their friendship. As Fionna embarks on a quest to understand Cake's unusual actions, viewers are drawn into a mysterious narrative that hints at a larger, magical world waiting to be explored. On a side note, we see some of the characters of Adventure Time in their human forms. This penguin statue looks like Gunter, this man with a mustache looks like Starchy, Queenie resembles the Queen of Ooh, and these three men on the street represent banana guards. Later, we see a flashback featuring the Ice King Simon Petrikov and a young Marceline fleeing from oozers in the wake of the Mushroom War. They hide in a sewer where Simon considers using his crown's powers but decides against it. In the present, an older Simon resides in a home on the human island in Ooh, which is an exhibit to the visitors. A young girl named Astrid, dressed as Fionna, approaches him hoping for more Fionna and Cake stories. Simon denies being the author and dismissively discards her fan fiction, upsetting her. Simon then visits a hidden shrine in his closet which contains objects related to Gulp, but something under a blanket in the exhibit warns him against his plans. In the Candy Kingdom Tavern, Simon is visibly upset by the sight of ice cubes, and he clutches a picture of his fiancée, Betty Groff, displaying immense stress. Unexpectedly, an elderly Finn, the original show's protagonist, approaches him and inquires about the source of his distress. Simon confides that he can no longer connect with the Fionna and Cake characters since he is no longer the Ice King, so Finn decides to take Simon on a quest in an attempt to lift his spirits. He decides to take Simon on a quest into the heart of the forest, the most ancient part of Ooh. Both of them are blindfolded as they venture deeper into the forest, hoping to find something that will help Simon reconnect with his sense of adventure and excitement for life. However, Finn's attempts are unsuccessful, and he is trying to cheer Simon up with the methods that worked for him, rather than understanding his perspective. In fact, even putting the blindfold on is a direct reference to the episode Hall of Egress, which took Finn on a trip of self-discovery. As he part ways with Finn, Simon's journey through Ooh reconnects him with memories of his past adventures and the relationships he once had, including Marceline, whom he calls while she's getting tattoos with Princess Bubblegum. Reluctant to burden her, he pretends everything is fine. Returning home, Simon rediscovers the Fionna and Cake book he previously discarded and finds inspiration in its pages. The entity in the cage mocks his efforts to bring back Betty, whom he unveils as Choose Goose, still tainted by Kokontepe's ichor from the episode Wizard City. Simon then begins a ritual to summon Betty or Gulp, but a portal unexpectedly opens at the back of his head, throwing out Cake, who had jumped into an ice cream stand in the previous episode. Meanwhile, in the infamous time room, a mysterious pink flashing light appears on a remote control. In a mysterious floating temple, Finn and Jake find themselves navigating a perilous maze, avoiding arrows and encountering an egg-like creature claiming to be out of shape. Their daring escape is marked by a showdown with a giant multi-eyed chicken, leading to their victory and a celebratory fist bump. Meanwhile, in the time room, Prismo is briefly distracted by their adventures on his TV wall, but the beeping noise on his remote control becomes too annoying, prompting him to drown it out with the TV. In the Fionna and Cake universe, Fionna pursues Cake, who has jumped into a mysterious blue portal within an ice cream stand. However, when Fionna confronts the ice cream vendor, she discovers Cake is not there. Frustrated and determined to find her, Fionna resumes her search. Back in Ooh, Simon is taken aback by Cake's unexpected appearance in his home. Initially unable to communicate with her, Simon uses a universal translator to decipher Cake's message for Fionna. Meanwhile, Astrid, dressed as Fionna, comes to Simon's door to retrieve her book. Cake escapes, leading to Astrid's discovery that the cat resembles Cake, but Simon dismissively closes the door. Cake embarks on her journey where she encounters a talking squirrel and samples cursed apples that cause her to grow and shrink in size. After finally returning to her regular size, Cake befriends the squirrel and heads towards the blue sparkly place. In Fionna World, an exhausted Fionna continues her search and encounters LSP and Marshall Lee. They encourage her to trust her instincts and look for the sparkly blue portal, emphasizing her uniqueness. Fionna becomes determined to find Cake no matter what it takes. At a fruit market, Cake indulges in various fruits, experiencing size fluctuations until she returns to her normal size. She sings a song that inadvertently causes chaos and results in an angry mob pursuing her. Suddenly, Fionna, hearing Cake's call, arrives through a portal, surprising Simon, who believes her to be an illusion. As Fionna attempts to communicate with Simon and find Cake, Astrid assists by tracking Cake's location using a sample of her cat hair. They eventually locate Cake at the market, where she's about to face dire consequences. Just as tensions rise, Fionna and Cake are beamed out of Ooh by Prismo, leaving their fate uncertain. In summary, it's becoming increasingly evident that these two worlds are intricately linked, with the recurring appearance of portals tied to ice-related objects, emphasizing how Simon has unwittingly become entwined in a much grander narrative. Nevertheless, the intervention of a character like Prismo hints at the potential dire consequences this connection could have on the fabric of time itself. The next episode begins with a cosmic entity named Siphon fighting Scarab, a god auditor who works as a watcher of cosmic entities. Scarab subdues him and checks his list of fugitives, finding Prismo listed as a violation, much to his amusement. In the time room, Prismo is troubled by the continuous beeping of his remote. Wyatt wishes for peace and quiet to concentrate, which Prismo grants, but it transports Wyatt to a silent film-like world where unusual events unfold. Prismo then finally investigates the source of the beeping, discovering an apparent crossover in the main timeline of Ooh featuring Fionna and Cake. He teleports them into the time room, starting from just where the last episode ended. Initially puzzled by their unfamiliar appearance, he soon rectifies it, restoring their normal forms from Ice King's fanfiction. Prismo brings Simon and questions him about Fionna and Cake's presence in Ooh and learns Simon was trying to summon Betty Groff, or Gulp. Fionna and Cake demand answers, so Prismo introduces himself as the Wishmaster, explaining his role in granting wishes and sometimes creating alternate realities. After eons, he got tired of fulfilling wishes and created Fionna and Cake as characters, copying Finn and Jake in Ooh and having them embark on different adventures. They wonder why their world is now dull, and Prismo claims their universe was hidden in Ice King's mind and lost its magic when he was cured. Their conversation is interrupted when Scarab arrives at Prismo's door. Fearing Scarab's scrutiny, Prismo splits into two beings, with one distracting Scarab while the other guides Fionna, Cake, and Simon to the exit. Scarab questions Prismo about his universe breach alarm, and Prismo offers a feeble excuse. Along the way, Prismo elucidates the multiverse concept, with unauthorized universes posing significant risks to other realities. They reach Old Man Prismo's room, where Prismo plans to force Simon to reopen the portal to return Fionna and Cake to their universe. Fionna, Cake, and Simon attempt to escape but end up cornered by Scarab, who aims to report Prismo's misconduct and destroy their universe. Prismo chooses to help them by providing a time remote and distracting Scarab. They escape to the Farm World universe, and Simon contemplates embracing his Ice King persona to protect Fionna and Cake, restore magic to their world, and ensure its perpetual existence. The episode delves into the concept of the multiverse, with Prismo explaining the dangers of unauthorized universes breaching into others. He briefly showcases various multiverses, including Farm World reality, Flapjack's universe, the Grotto universe, and his favorite. This raises the possibility that there are countless alternate realities within the Adventure Time multiverse, each with its own unique characters and stories. After Simon lays out his plan to reclaim his Ice King title by locating Farm World's crown, they stumble upon a town where Fionna starts questioning the townsfolk about the whereabouts of the magical crown. This curiosity, however, attracts some less than friendly attention from a gang member. Just when things are getting dicey, they get rescued by none other than Rt&x, who guides them out of town via a series of underground pipes. As they catch their breath, Jay drops a bombshell. His dad happens to be the one who discovered the crown. This revelation leaves Fionna, Simon, and Cake wide-eyed, especially when they realize that Jay's dad is the world's counterpart of none other than Finn himself. Farm World Finn reluctantly agrees to provide shelter for Fionna, Cake, Simon, and Bonnie for the night. Farm World Finn shares some family stories and a strong aversion to magic, citing past run-ins with the notorious Destiny Gang. Jay offers to lead the group to Crater, where Finn stumbled upon the crown and her daughter Bonnie insists on tagging along. Meanwhile, the Scarab tracks the gang to the Farm World and interrogates Choose Bruce to determine their whereabouts. Upon learning that they've headed west with Jay, Scarab sets off in pursuit. Back at Farm World Finn's abode, our travelers discuss their quest to find a magic crown, but Finn's temper flares at the mere mention of it, as he insists they depart by morning. The next day, Jay wakes them up, ready to guide them to the crown's supposed location. As they make their way, Farm World Finn fondly reminisces about his own past struggles when he wore the crown as Ice Finn. Upon reaching the crater, a shocking revelation awaits them: the crown has been utterly destroyed. Just then, the Destiny Gang, led by Big Destiny, makes a dramatic entrance, sparking a heated brawl. Farm World Finn steps in to defend his newfound friends, and Simon ingeniously reprograms Prismo's remote using a jewel from the damaged crown. Just when it seems they may have the upper hand, Scarab arrives, and as Simon activates the remote, everyone is unexpectedly transported out of Farm World, with Scarab in tow courtesy of his firm grip on Simon's leg. In this episode, Farm World Finn's strong aversion to magic hints at its potentially destructive nature within the Adventure Time universe. Then, the Destiny Gang's pursuit of magic, symbolized by the Ice Crown, leads to chaos and conflict among the groups. This could be a commentary on the idea that power, particularly magic power, can disrupt the harmony of a world. It also hints that maybe Fionna and Cake were better off in their non-magical mundane lives. In Fionna's world, Gary Prince pays a visit to Fionna's apartment but is surprised to find it in a messy state. He assumes she's been robbed but encounters Marshall Lee living in her apartment. Meanwhile, Simon, Fionna, and Cake are beamed into an ice kingdom, still chased by the persistent Scarab. They are saved by an ice wizard known as the Winter King, an alternate version of Simon himself. Seeing his alternate self without any powers, the Winter King offers to help them by creating a duplicate magic crown. Simon is puzzled as to why the Winter King isn't made insane by the crown, prompting him to reveal his journey through a song. Meanwhile, Fionna is given an ice sword to test her combat skills, which have improved with the Ice King's curse. Later, the kingdom is attacked by the Candy Queen, who captures both Simon and the Winter King. This calls for a rescue mission, which sparks Fionna's eyes as she has been yearning for a chance to show her combat skills. After the rescue, the Ice King and Fionna share a romantic kiss, but it rapidly ages him and he disintegrates into dust. The Winter Kingdom and everything he created begins to melt, and Fionna is left in shock as the Candy Queen transforms back into Princess Bubblegum, revealing that the Winter King had transferred his madness into her. Well, this explains why he was able to remain sane and create a prosperous kingdom. Princess Bubblegum expresses her gratitude, revealing that the kiss broke the curse, and offers Fionna a lollipop as a token of appreciation. As Fionna reflects on her actions in various universes, the Scarab reappears and the gang escapes to another universe. Meanwhile, in Fionna's world, after discovering Fionna's absence, Gary Prince is joined by Marshall Lee, who assures him that Fionna can be unpredictable. They head out together, discussing Gary's biscuit creations, his dream of owning a bakery, and the possibility of securing investors like the Lemon Carbs. They make a secret visit to the bakery after hours, which lead to a surprise encounter with the Lemon Carbs, who try Gary's pastries but ultimately reject them. Despite the setback, Gary and Marshall Lee bond over their shared passion for baking, showing their budding friendship as they clean up the bakery together. The episode ends with the group inside a baby-themed reality, determined to find a way to restore Simon's magic. In a flashback, a young Marceline is chased by oozers in an alternate reality and stumbles upon the corpse of Simon Petrikov. Meanwhile, Fionna, Cake, and the main timeline Simon are transported to this universe where Fionna remains haunted by the violence she had to inflict on ice people in the previous world. Just then, Simon informs them that they have only one magic jump left between dimensions and that they should make them count. Just then, they are ambushed by vampires, leading to a brawl that ends with Bonnie, Princess Bubblegum of this universe, showing up in a tank. She introduces her crew, Martin and Huntress, and reveals she plans to march head into the Vampire King's hive where Fionna will find the crown. They also learn that Finn from the baby dimension had secretly crawled into Fionna's bag, meaning he is stuck with them now. On their way, they encounter King's Ward Star, who viciously drains Martin's soul, rendering him lifeless. It's revealed that Star is Marceline we saw in the flashback earlier, and without Simon to raise her, she chose the dark side. The group is trying to plant garlic bombs in the Vampire King's hive to draw out all the vampires. However, their plan goes horribly wrong when the Vampire King arrives holding a dead hunter. He instructs Marceline to finish off Bonnie, prompting Simon to call him a bad dad. Meanwhile, Marshall Lee and Gary attend Miss Abadir's charity ball event, where Marshall reveals his apprehension about seeing his mother. Gary assures him that he has his back, and when Miss Abadir humiliates Marshall during her speech, Gary stands up for him, calling her a bad mom. Meanwhile, Fionna, Cake, and Simon use the remote to travel to the other dimension, but it gets broken between Fionna and Cake's struggles. In the midst of their heated confrontation, Marceline and Bonnie find themselves tumbling off the hive, hurtling towards the distant ground below. Marceline states that killing her would mean Bonnie dying as well, but Bonnie claims that they would die together. On the other side, Gary grabs Lee's hand and takes him to the elevator, and the episode ends with the two sharing a kiss. The next episode begins with a heartwarming flashback featuring Simon Petrikov and Betty Groff, emphasizing their shared adventures and affection for each other. In the present, Simon, Fionna, and Cake traverse a desolate alternate universe, searching for the Ice King's crown and a way to return home. Cake is still upset with Fionna for preventing her from stealing the crown in Vampire World. With the remote broken, their only hope is to find a way to repair it. Meanwhile, Scarab, seeking to fix Prismo's unauthorized alternate universe, is confronted by Orbo, his boss. Scarab's efforts to report Prismo's actions are met with skepticism, leading to a contentious conversation. As Fionna and Cake explore the unfamiliar world, Simon shares tales of his past, particularly his romantic relationship with Betty. These stories offer Fionna insight into Simon's complex history and his regrets about the crown's influence. Their journey leads them to a decaying treehouse where they encounter the universe's version of BMO. BMO leads them to the former site of the Ice Kingdom, finding only melted ice and tapes left behind by the Ice King. These tapes reveal the Ice King's descent into madness, causing discomfort among the group. Things go even worse when they discover the crown is missing. BMO leads them to the Candy Kingdom, hoping she can fix the remote. However, frustration grows as they realize the remote is beyond repair, but Simon continues telling his romantic tale of how he and Betty got together to cheer Fionna up. Inspired by the concept of love, BMO sacrifices himself to jumpstart the remote, resulting in an emotional farewell. The group mourns BMO's loss, and Fionna suggests finding Jerry to deliver the bad news. Along the way, they bond through music, recall their past adventures, and encounter Lit, who initially immobilizes them but then lets them go due to his world's desolation. Just then, Fionna reveals she found the crown when they reached the Ice Kingdom, but she wanted to keep it a secret after seeing the tapes. Simon assures her that everything will be okay, and the ritual transporting Fionna and Cake back to his mind occurs and leaves Lich intrigued. As Simon begins to put on the crown, his memories of Betty cause an unexpected outcome. He and Scarab, who has just arrived after approval from his boss, are transported into Golb's world, leaving the Lich in astonishment. Later, Fionna and Cake explore their magical world, which has been restored thanks to the Ice King's crown. However, they quickly notice bizarre and unsettling inconsistencies, including their friends Gary and Marshall Lee transforming into monstrous versions of themselves. Fionna and Cake return to their apartment where they discover a distorted body of Simon in their freezer. Frightened by these strange visions, Fionna wakes up in the town's ice skating rink, relieved to find it unchanged. Cake, however, had the same disturbing dream and dismisses it as a mere coincidence. They encounter Gary and Marshall Lee, now a couple, and Fionna informs them that their world exists within Simon's mind and is about to undergo magical changes. Simon, on the other hand, awakens in Gulp's dimension and encounters the Lich praying to Gulp. Gulp Betty, a fusion of Betty and Gulp, destroys the Lich and turns her attention to Simon, who apologizes for failing Betty and reveals his plan to use the crown to save Fionna and Cake. Meanwhile, in the distant future of Ooh set after the episode Come Along With Me, Shermie and Beth continue their adventures as usual. However, Shermie suddenly goes into a trance, and Gulp Betty's spell transports Simon's mind into Shermie's body. Simon mistakenly believes he is in another alternate universe, while Beth remains skeptical but agrees to help him find information about the crown. Scarab, trapped in the Gulp dimension, attempts to use his crystal tool on Simon but is repeatedly thwarted by Gulp Betty's powers. Terrified of its powers, one of the miniature scarabs manages to escape into the portal leading to Fionna World. Back in Fionna World, while initially skeptical about the whole magic thing, Gary and Lee are convinced when Cake inadvertently displays her powers. They explain their world's history and express concerns about the impending changes. They decide to inform Simon about Gary and Marshall Lee's relationship, hoping to influence their world positively. In the midst of their attempt, they are attacked by Scarab's bugs, which enter their world through various portals. Meanwhile, Prismo, trapped in a cube by Scarab, expresses frustration at his inability to help Fionna and Cake. The group, joined by Hunter, captures the Scarab bugs to prevent them from reassembling into Scarab and destroying their reality, while Fionna tries to call Simon but receives no response. In the future, Beth and Simon retrieve hollow books from a library and stumble upon a choose-your-own-adventure book called Ancient Artifacts. They learn it's a trigger-based story and follow the adventures of characters Casper and Nova on a quest for magical artifacts, including a magic crown. They have to play the game till the end to find the crown's location. Back in Fionna's apartment, the group witnesses an explosion caused by Scarab, who has reassembled, setting the stage for future conflicts. In the final episode, the events of the Casper and Nova holobook continue, with Simon becoming frustrated with the limited choices and outcomes presented in the story. Back in Fionna World, Scarab confronts Fionna and Cake, accusing them of ruining the various worlds they visited. Cake attempts to fight Scarab, but is ultimately incapacitated, and Scarab, armed with his crystal multi-tool, starts destroying their world. Their efforts to stop him are ineffective, and Fionna watches in horror as Scarab wreaks havoc on their world. All this time, she wanted to change the mundane world she lives in, only for her wish that it remain unchanged. Well, it's too late for that now. In Gulp's dimension, Simon reflects on his past and his choices, particularly how he let Betty sacrifice her desires for him. He has a moment of clarity, realizing that he deserves to exit just as much as Fionna and Cake do, and Gulp Betty seems pleased with this realization. Just then, Fionna contacts Simon and informs him of Scarab's attack on her world. Simon is about to put on the crown to intervene, but Fionna stops him, expressing her desire to fight for her world as it is. She believes that their meeting was a meaningful part of her life, even if her world exists within Simon's mind. Simon resists the urge to wear the crown and throws it away. Gulp Betty helps Simon send Fionna World back to Fionna's control as a Dandelion seed head. Fionna makes a wish on it, and the seeds spread, healing their world and reversing Scarab's damage. Gulp Betty sends Simon back to Ooh, and Prismo, now freed from his imprisonment, notices that Fionna World has now become part of the multiverse. This means Scarab cannot repo this universe, but despite his boss's orders, he continues to destroy the place. Prismo intervenes by summoning characters from different universes to help Fionna and Cake battle Scarab. Fionna, with the assistance of Cake and their alternate universe friends, defeats Scarab and traps him in his own egg trap. The show ends with a montage showing the repair and restoration of Fionna World, while Simon appreciates his life in Ooh more. He shares his adventures with Astrid, who gets inspired to create the characters Casper and Nova. Simon and Fionna maintain contact, and Scarab faces consequences for his actions. All in all, the show underscores the idea that change is an inevitable part of life. Fionna initially seeks to change her mundane world, but as she witnesses its destruction, she realizes the value of preserving what she has. Additionally, Simon's journey is a lesson in self-acceptance and recognizing one's self-worth. Initially, he grapples with feelings of inadequacy and guilt over Betty's sacrifice, but ultimately he learns that he deserves to exist and be happy just like anyone else. And lastly, Fionna's decision not to use the Ice Crown, even in the face of a dire threat, highlights the importance of personal choice. She chooses to fight for her world as it is, demonstrating that individuals have the power to shape their destinies through their decisions and actions. And this concludes the entire timeline of Adventure Time Fionna and Cake so far. What do you think? Let us know your crazy theories about the show down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, drop us a like, subscribe to our channel, and click that bell icon for more awesome toons like this recapped on your feed. With that said, thanks for watching. Peace.